Dear media representatives, first of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude on behalf of our delegation to Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Turkish Republic, Mr. Hakan Fidan, for giving us an opportunity on short notice to meet and discuss a wide range of international affairs. And I thank my colleague and my friend for the traditionally warm welcome and high level of organization of this work visit of the Russian delegation. We are satisfied to state that despite tense international situation, the political dialogue between Russia and Turkey remains positive. Our presidents, President Putin and President Erdogan, keep regular contacts. Last year, our leaders had 2 personal meetings at the SCO summit in Astana last July and at the BRICS summit in Kazan in October 2024. And the pace that our leaders have set, the pace of efficient communication, is upheld by our ministry and other authorities as well, ministries of defense, intelligence services. Last year, Minister Fidan and myself have regularly aligned our positions on the international agenda. Our last contact took place just a few days ago in Johannesburg at the G20 Minister of Foreign Affairs Summit. We welcome the organization of interparliamentary exchanges, and last year saw the official visit of Mr. Kurtulmuş, chair of the Great National Assembly of Turkey. He was received by President Putin and spoke in front of the Diplomatic Academy of our ministry. And this week, Ankara will be hosting Valentina Matvienko, head of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation. We also discussed ways of expanding our bilateral economic ties, including our large-scale efforts in the energy sphere. We noted the mutual interest and great potential for cooperation in the banking sector, industrial cooperation, transport and logistics, tourism. And, of course, we spoke in detail on various aspects of cooperating on a strategic project, is the Akkuyu nuclear power plant. Russian and Turkish specialists work together to ensure that power unit number 1 is commissioned on schedule, and all 4 reactors are being built 24/7, and we have serious developments in other projects, new projects in atomic energy. Speaking of energy, we touched upon issues of operating and ensuring the security of gas pipelines. This is essential amid permanent, constant provocations from the Kyiv regime, which aims to undermine normal functioning of gas pipelines with terrorist attacks. For Turkey, it's very important that these pipelines work without interruption. Turkey is a major transit actor of Russia's natural gas, so any disruption in the work of those pipelines can lead to inflation in the energy market, which will ultimately affect the lives of common consumers. We informed our Turkish counterparts in detail about the Russian-American negotiations in Riyadh, the 18th of February, in which we see positively as an opportunity that has finally emerged to maintain a normal dialogue despite numerous differences. Without a normal dialogue, it will never be clear whether we will be able to overcome those differences. We will continue contacts with our American partners, as we have agreed. We have spoken in detail about a number of international affairs, such as processes currently unfolding around Ukraine. Our position remains unchanged, and we are satisfied to say that the position of many countries has become much more realistic. They now understand that without a long-term agreement that would remove the core reasons for this situation, nothing will be possible to improve. We spoke in detail about the Arab-Israeli conflict, spoke about measures required to ensure a permanent ceasefire, release of hostages, and of course to resume the negotiations process on the base of the UN Security Council that provides for the right of the Palestinian people to establish their own independent state that would coexist side to side with Israel in peace and security. We were satisfied at the level of agreement between our countries on the Syrian topic. We confirmed mutual interest in efforts to settle the situation in this country, considering the latest development. We spoke about the situation in the South Caucasus, paying special attention to building trust between the parties to the conflict, restoring infrastructure and transport communications, and restoring economic activity on the base of multilateral agreements within the 3+3 international consulting platform, meaning 3 countries of the South Caucasus and their 3 neighbors, Russia, Turkey and Iran. In general, I think this contact has been very valuable. We will continue working in Ankara, and I'm sure that this meeting will contribute to further expansion of cooperation between the Russian Federation and the Republic of Turkey.
Soru alacağız. İlk soruyu Al Jazeera İngilizce kanalından Sinem Hanım soracak.
The first question is from Al Jazeera.
Çok teşekkür ederim. İlk sorum Sayın Bakan Hakan Fidan'a. Türkiye özellikle
First question is to Minister Hakan Fidan
Rusya ve Ukrayna arasında
about the Black Sea Grain Initiative. This grain deal, indeed, Turkey played a great role between Russia and Ukraine. Is Turkey going to continue its role as the middleman between Russia and Ukraine? Is it interested in other middleman initiatives in other regions of the world? Last week, Ukraine President Zelensky was in Ankara, and he demanded international guarantees of security. What could those securities be, and how feasible and realistic those guarantees could be? Mr. Lavrov, you said there have been some contacts between Russia and America, and how could those contacts contribute to the situation? And can Turkey again be hosting those negotiations? On the other hand, Zelensky spoke about security guarantees. What do you think about those security guarantees? Zelensky also said that Turkey and European countries must include Ukraine in this process and must step into this process. You know, I can only confirm Russia's position because it hasn't changed, unlike the position of the very character you've mentioned, who seems to be changing his position much more often than the green T-shirts he favors so much. The position of European countries is also hard to understand because it seems rather volatile, changing depending on who gets what ideas. Amid all this, the position of the United States stands rather firm. It's rather consistent. The United States doesn't call for immediate peace at the contact line and then thinking what to do next. We have always said that this doesn't satisfy us. This approach was tried in April 2022 in Istanbul when an agreement had been achieved on the basis of principles that the Ukrainians had proposed. And then, as a gesture of goodwill, they asked us to stop the advance of our troops and even step back a little, which we did. The only result of that was that the West, represented by the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson, forbade Ukraine to sign the document and told Ukraine to keep on weakening Russia. They promised that Ukraine will be getting more weapons and to fight till Russia is delivered strategic defeat on a battlefield. So using advice from Europe is out of question anymore. Our president said clearly that Russia is ready to negotiate with Ukraine and Europe and any representatives or middlemen who are willing to assist in achieving. But we will only stop hostilities after the negotiations have provided a firm result, a firm outcome that satisfies the Russian Federation. And of course, the situation on the ground must be taken into account. In a situation when the Nazi regime in Kyiv has passed a series of laws since 2019 that ban the Russian language from all spheres, including all levels of education, including mass media, including the sphere of culture. And when the same regime recently banned the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, all that made the people, not only of Crimea, the people of Crimea made their choice in 2014, but also the people of Donetsk, Lugansk, Kherson, and Zaporozhye regions. They made their choice. They didn't want to stay under a regime that had done everything to eradicate all things Russian on lands that had for centuries been explored by Russian people. And now, in accordance with the Russian constitution, their choice has been set forth internationally, and respecting this situation, this realia, is mandatory. Another prerequisite is non-acceptance of Ukraine in NATO. This has to be guaranteed. We welcome the fact that President Trump, in public, has many times called the course towards drawing Ukraine in NATO a mistake, and said that if he had been president in the previous years, he would never have allowed this course to prevail, and then no conflict, he said, would have taken place. But pulling Ukraine into NATO is one of the core reasons of what is happening. There's no doubt about that. One of Donald Trump's advisors said that the war had been provoked and not necessarily by the Russian Federation. This war had been prepared for a long time by Washington under the Democrats, by the Brussels bureaucracy, and the other core reason is the, well, essentially genocide of Russian-speaking or the southeast of Ukraine, who made their legitimate choice in favor of going back to the Russian Federation. And as for security guarantees, well, in Istanbul in April 2022, we discussed security guarantees from Turkey, Germany, and 5 EU countries on condition of giving up the plan to join NATO. Well, there used to be security guarantees on the table, formulated by the Ukrainian delegation itself, without joining any military unions or blocs. Now we have to see who is going to decide. I don't think the Ukrainian leadership can do anything now, except for trying to make as much money as possible. Now they're bargaining with the United States for paying back the financial aid provided by the Biden administration without any documents. Mr. Lavrov, my question is to you. Steve Witkoff, one of the members of the Russian-American talks in Riyadh, said that the Istanbul Agreement drafts could serve as the foundation for a future peace treaty between Ukraine. What can you say about that? And what consultations did Trump mention on the 25th of February between Russia and the US? And another question is from Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkey. Turkey was previously invited to become a member country of BRICS. Is this discussion still underway? Is Ankara interested in obtaining this status? As for Steve Witkoff's statement that the draft of Istanbul agreements from April 2022 could serve as foundation for the Ukrainian settlement, well, I haven't heard that. There's one thing I can confirm. Vladimir Putin, President of the Russian Federation, has said that many times, reminding that in Istanbul, 3 years ago, we were maybe 1 hour away from signing a full-scale agreement. But Boris Johnson banned Ukraine from doing that. And in an interview, a Ukrainian official publicly confirmed this fact, that 3 years ago they had been ready to sign, but they were forbidden to do that by London and Washington. The principles of the Istanbul Agreement is giving up the idea to join NATO, giving up hosting international military bases, and security guarantees from the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, Turkey, Germany, maybe other countries willing to do that. All that was broken. They decided to wait and see how the situation on the battlefield will develop. And as for our meetings with the Americans after the Riyadh meeting, we agreed to resume channels of communication on all matters of bilateral ties in different areas and international matters such as the situation in Ukraine. America is going to send a special envoy on this matter, and the Middle East, of course. Perhaps the easiest thing to do will be to resume the normal functioning of Russian embassies, the Russian embassy in Washington and the American embassy in Moscow. To that end, there have already been 2 preliminary contacts last week, and this week we are holding full-scale consultations that I hope will remove the obstacles set by the democratic administrations of the United States over the last few years.
Добрый день, меня зовут Кассаб Мухаммад, корреспондент RT Arabic. Сергей Викторович, как вы оцениваете будущее отношения с Дамаском?
Mr. Lavrov, how do you see the future of Russia's relationships with Damascus? What do you think of remaining U.S. military presence in Syria after the regime change? Well, as for the American military presence in Syria, I think it's not me you should be asking. You should be asking the Syrian leadership, the Syrian people, I would say. Before the power change, the American military presence played a negative role, I think. First of all, they were there without any official invitation from the legitimate power. Second, this presence was aimed at occupying the most beneficial lands from the point of view of food and hydrocarbons, and using the revenues from selling those resources to finance quasi-state structures in the northeast of Syria, mostly to fuel Kurdish separatism. So this role can hardly be seen as positive. As for now, we need to take a look at how the current Syrian leadership sees that and how this aligns with the hosting of the All-Syrian National Assembly that should mark the beginning of an inclusive process of finding agreements on the future of this country, involving all political, ethnic, and confessional groups. If we see any progress being made in this regard, I think it's going to play a positive role in the relationships between Damascus and the Russian Federation and other countries. As Minister Fidan emphasized in his speech, are interested in ensuring territorial integrity of an independent and sovereign Syria that will live peacefully with its neighbors.